to give you an update on the latest on my reef aquarium, and I thought I'd start us out in the Florida Keys. Just a few weeks ago, I did a fishing trip and tropical fish collecting trip to the Florida Keys, not far off of Marathon. Those are a couple snook. There were 4 or 5 of them there, but I caught 2 of them on the camera. And coming up on some Elkhorn coral. I went diving with some friends of mine, and there they are. But I stayed in my snorkeling gear, and this particular reef is Sombrero. It's a patch reef. It's typically beautiful, but we came in the beginning of June. It was 1 week after a tropical storm went through. In fact, at the time I think I was filming this, the storm was hitting the right off the Gulf and the Panhandle of Florida, maybe a little bit further into the Louisiana area. But it had already cleared the Keys and the Florida coast. But you can see we have quite a bit of turbidity, and the visibility is not too terrible, but it's not the best. Here you see a little yellow tang. Let me see if I can get closer to it. And then it's actually a blue tang, and as juveniles they are yellow. And I had gotten one from my reef aquarium. Here's the adult blue tang. Just caught off of there. He's staying his distance from me. In previous videos I've shown you the schools of the blue tangs, but they are very pretty yellow when they're juveniles with a nice blue fringe. Moving on from the ocean into my reef, living room I should say. Here is my blue tang. Still has a yellow tail to him, and quite often in the mornings he comes out a little bit yellowish, and in the afternoons he's more blue. Oh, you may have spotted a little butterfly fish in there. I did collect some tropicals. There's a 4-eyed butterfly, and back in the back you see a banded butterfly. So 2 butterfly fish I collected while I was down there. And you know, butterfly fish and corals, they love to eat coral. So this is going to be an interesting adventure for us to see what happens to a reef aquarium when you put butterfly fish in. Actually, a couple years ago I put a Klein's butterfly in, and after about 2 days he started poking away at my Duncan coral and doing severe damage to it. And eventually I took him out. But these little butterfly fish, they've been in there for a couple of weeks now, and they hadn't done much in the way of damage. But we're going to see just what happens, and I'm not quite sure or certain what I'm going to do about it. But this is my reef as of June of 2020. My old aquarium that's been in this spot, in this place, since probably 2005. And it's always fun to collect. I actually collect a little baby parrotfish. Oh, he's so adorable, and I loved them. I had them in a tank for about a week, a quarantine tank. All these were in the quarantine tank before I put them in the main. But I quarantined them while I was still in the Florida Keys, and you can see I also collected a French angelfish, and this thing is delightful. So all of these fish are new and collected, but I did return the parrotfish back to the ocean because parrotfish they chomp on coral pretty severely. And I'm sure these butterflies are going to start picking on the coral polyps, but we're going to find out. We'll find out together what happens to them. Right now, I'm just hoping for survival. I've had, other than the Klein's butterfly, which I've had for a couple years, and then the fish tank he was in actually bursted open. You may remember a previous video from a couple years back, but I ended up losing him soon after that tank went belly up. and he survived the the tank busting open, but I had to put him in a new tank, and it wasn't long after that I lost all my fish in that little 20 gallon I had going. But I want you to look at the aquarium as it is today. It's an old aquarium. It's aged. I don't go and buy like most people. I'm not a coral collector where I'm always putting new corals in. Everything you see is grown out. The monopore, the Superman that's stretched out there. Maybe the last time I posted wasn't all that big. It's growing quite nicely. It's a phenomenal coral. It's beautiful. It's the purplish Superman coloration. But you can see that brain coral is just doing wonderful, and that four-eyed butterfly is just picking on it. The mushrooms and all the softies I have are just fabulous. The zoanthids, oh, they're gorgeous and brilliant. They just pop, but they're like almost like a nuisance. They're taking over that side of the tank. And then of course I got a leather coral back there. Years ago, I'm saying about 10 years ago, that leather was huge, and I just completely removed it. And now it's growing back in again. And I'm not certain what I want to do about it. I was trying to keep the corals just to be more in a sense of what you would see in the Atlantic Ocean, but it's hard to keep faithful to that. But I didn't really want the leather coral, so I had completely removed it. Took the rock out. Like I said, 10 years ago, took the rock out, removed the leather as best I could, and then kind of scraped off anything that remained. But there was enough of a little smidgen of leather that remained on that rock, and here it is 10 years later. It's still there. The frog spawn, look at that. It is beautiful, and it's incredible how well. I don't know, about a 6 months, a year ago, it was after my last post on this aquarium. Somebody came by. I gave them a chunk of this frog spawn, and after they left, I thought, oh my gosh, I gave more than I only have a little fistful of it right now. I gave way too much away. And then now look at it. It's only been a year, and it's replaced itself and then some, and it's just doing so good. But that's where my tank is right now. I'm having thoughts about getting a new tank, and I don't know at what point I'm going to do this, maybe years down the road, but I'm considering it now. I like to get a Red Sea 425 XL, and that's 425 liters. It'd be about 90 gallons, I think, 112, I think, with the sump is what it is. It's a downsize from what I have now. This is a 5-foot long tank, 120 gallons, but the footprint on the Red Sea tank is actually about the same size when you think of square footage, or should I say square inches, because the 5 foot 60 inches by 18 inches outside length comes out to about 1,000 something square inches, where the 47 to 48 inch Red Sea by 22 and a half or something, that also comes out to just over 1,000 square inches. So the volume is less, but the footprint's about the same. So one of the considerations I'm having. Well, that's what I wanted to talk to you about, where my thoughts are on this old aquarium I have. At some point, I'm looking at downsizing slightly, but upgrading the whole system and getting I like a little wider aquarium and not as deep. I won't have a deep sand bed if I do make the change. But that's my thoughts. And I'm going to turn this back over to the to the ocean. And here we're back on Sombrero Reef. It's a patch reef, not too far off of Marathon, not too far from the bridge everybody knows. So hopefully you enjoyed this update on my reef aquarium and my adventures this year in the Florida Keys and my collection, and got a few new butterfly and the French angelfish. Hopefully they'll live. So that's it for now, and we'll catch you guys next time.